The reason that your school isn't getting any resources has nothing to do with your pitch and has everything to do with your inability to have high expectations and standards in every aspect of your school. Culture permeates everything. Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem of academic excellence through inspiring conversations, practical strategies, and actionable insights. We empower educators, just like yourself, leaders and change makers, to foster trust, collaboration, and academic excellence so that we can provide you with the resources that you need to not just have a successful school, but ultimately to impact communities around you. The reality of fundraising, pitching, garnering resources, and mobilizing the various resources that you need as a school have nothing to do with your pitch. They have everything to do with who you are as a school and an educational institution. We look at educators and leaders and students and what your parents would even say about your school and the community stakeholders. And all of these things are critical to how you approach the pitching process. So in this conversation, yes, we're going to talk about 7 steps you cannot afford to miss when you're preparing your pitch. But I want to talk about a case study of a school that we worked with in the past that helped us realize these 7 steps. And if you emulate the work that this school is already doing consistently, it will allow you to not just have a much better pitch when you're approaching partners and corporations, but it will also be able to bleed into how you approach operating your school in order to have a more high quality educational institution that is ultimately producing results for students. I had the opportunity of connecting with individuals and educators from Eagle Ridge Academy in Minnetonka, Minnesota, and are they doing some absolutely amazing work. They're one of the top charter schools, K-12 charter schools in the state of Minnesota, US Best News, and they've won all of the awards because they are doing things that ultimately other schools are not doing around the country. Their model is not just a classical education model. Their model is geared towards a one principle that when we look at why the school was founded, it was a group of individual parents that thought local education was too progressive and wanted to do something, or local education, was too traditional, and they wanted to be able to have something that's more progressive. So in the first 7 to 8 years, the school was almost 90% white. And the culture, the systems were completely different. 7 to 8% of their students were on free and reduced lunch. But over the last 10 years, the school has shifted. Because one of the things that we've realized and that we studied is that in that first 7 to 8 years, the school had an amazing population of students, but they weren't producing the results that they deserved to be able to produce and that they set out to produce. But once there was a transition, and over the last 10 years, 60% of their students are now students of color. They are now outperforming the state in 35% in every state metric. Let me just say that again. They are outperforming the state in math, in reading, and all of the critical subjects by 35% metrics. So yes, the students are successful academically, but their alumni of Eagle Ridge Academy are going off to lead in the technology field in Silicon Valley, legal field in New York, the science industry. And this school is producing local politicians, congressmen, and leaders that are doing amazing things internationally. And how they got to this point is one word: leadership. And one of the things that we studied in engaging in work with this organization is that at the beginning, they had a model so niche down that allowed them to be clear in the type of work that they were doing. So I want to talk about 7 steps. I want to talk about how the work that they're doing has allowed us to create a mirror and hold this mirror up to a lot of the other schools that we engage with. Because the first question of the 7-step model that I want you to ask yourself is, what are you developing? Yes, I understood the why. And yes, the school was founded and developed by a group of parents that thought local education was too traditional and they wanted something a little bit more progressive. But that's the why. What they evolved to becoming is when they looked at this idea of progressive, they recognized progressive doesn't just look like one demographic. Progressive is creating a diverse population of students. They also wanted a model that was focused on education. And when you think about the development of what you're developing, do the specific things that are happening within the school align with what you're developing? They wanted a high quality, high level, high performing classical education. They wanted to develop future leaders. So when they look at the track record of success and what they've been able to do over the years, they've been able to put people in technology, law, science, and all of these major fields because they developed a model that worked. They have students that are reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. I remember sitting in one of their meetings and talking to a student, and the student quoted, she said, "I expect the best out of myself, and I am not okay with doing just enough anymore because of what this school has shown me in practice, but what this school has taught me." What types of students are you developing at your school? Are you developing students that just want to kind of come through your process? Or are you developing students that are truly engaged in the works that you are presenting them? Are teachers integrated in not just educational curriculums, but are they integrated in ensuring that they are learning more, growing more, and succeeding outside of the building so that they can bring that work into the building? Do your teachers and educators have passion for what they're actually doing? Are they reading books, writing about something in today's world and connecting that to their reading so that we can have students join in on the conversation in the classroom? I remember being on campus and I had students that were leading capstone projects and seniors that were talking about all of the various texts that they read over their high school career. And they were comparing that to how classical education connects with modern education and some of the various things that are happening. And they were giving full presentations to the whole senior class. And they were probably the best presentations that I've ever seen in my career. These students were prepared by far more than any classical school that I've ever attended. And as somebody that worked on a board at a classical school based in North Carolina, there's a difference between having a title of classical school and having a mission statement that says we have a classical education. And I see it in practice when I walk through the classrooms. I see it in practice when I'm communicating to alumni of the school. I see it in practice. So what are you developing is the first question that I want you to think through. And can I see that on a day-to-day basis in your curriculum and the actions, the habits, and the behaviors of your students and the processes? Is it embedded in the mindset of these students? Number 2, does our mission align with what's actually happening throughout the school? One of the points that we recognized when we were there is they had a model where all students will achieve, that no students will be neglected or left behind, and they had to build a model that catered to the various students' needs. They worked with students until they got it. Was a specific quote from another student that coming into their building was drastically under grade level and was not equipped with the level of knowledge, but then also was underprepared with the level of rigor that this school was requiring from students. The level of demand and standard allowed students to achieve at a higher level because they required success and excellence. When you look at your mission, I want you to think through this idea that Eagle Ridge has mastered and that they are shifting behaviors, developing minds, so that they can give and become their absolute best. One of the other students quoted, "My teacher showed me that if I don't do my best, I can work hard and do it again and again. Eagle Ridge Academy taught me that I can keep trying after I do badly. Ultimately, Eagle Ridge taught me how to persevere." When you think of your mission statement, can your students or even your teachers pull specific words from your mission statement and say that this school is teaching me this because of this? This teacher has shown me this. When I think of classical education as a whole, we're developing the moral values and character of students. But one of the challenges that I've seen in even working in charter schools, especially classical schools, is that you can't demand students to have high levels of efficiency and effectiveness if we're not providing those students with the necessary support. So one of the things that is being done at this institution is that every single week, they're not just tracking the F's and the D's for athletes. They're tracking C, D, and F students every single week and requiring that students that have C's, D's, and F's go to mandatory study halls every single week with educators. They had a 100% graduation rate after starting summer school and making it their own process. They are committed to removing a lot of the traditional governmental or bureaucratic barriers that exist, and they stopped getting funding from the Trump administration so that they can be able to have customization in the programs that they're offering students. They're unwavering in regards to their mission. They're providing alternative math and alternative chemistry programs that are not necessarily aligned with state standards, but if you're outperforming all state metrics by 35% or more, then there's something that they're doing well. So when you think about your mission, are you willing to die on your mission more than conform to the various things around you? At this school, kids that have been there 1 to 2 years increase their proficiency by 50%. Kids that have been at this school for 3 to 4 years are at 85% proficiency in both reading and math. So when you think about what you're developing first, when you think about how are we aligning programs and the various processes and actions and all of the things that we're doing to our mission, this will help you in step number 3, understand your unique selling proposition. I asked the question of how would they define the culture of their school. And their teachers, I was in a room with principals and all of their executive leadership and saying the culture of this school is a culture of high expectation and high standards. They're not talking about state testing. We are talking about in everything that we do, it's high expectation. We are all on our very best, and tomorrow you are going to bring better so that we can reach your best every single day. Culture permeates everything. As I walked around the school, I saw parents volunteering, principals walking the hall, executive director of the district walking through classrooms, and seeing everyone from kids sitting and learning in the lunchrooms, outside duty, helping the executive assistant when it's raining or cold outside. Modeling behavior is the pillar system that allows them to have a culture of high expectation and excellence. When I think about the words unique selling proposition, I want you to reflect on what makes my school better than every other school in my district, in my county, in my state. Because oftentimes what I've recognized is we have amazing brochures, we have great digital advertisement, we have a beautiful website, and even with various laws, charter school laws today, we even have beautiful buildings. But when I think about organizations, even like Charter One, which is a CMO, a charter management organization based in Arizona, all of their buildings look the same. And even their curriculums within their buildings are the same. But when we look at high standards and high excellence, when we look at high quality and high performing, they can't compete with a school like Eagle Ridge Academy. or a Nova Classical based in Minnesota. They can't compete with John Adams Classical School, because sometimes sameness is the very reason that you cannot achieve high academically or have a thriving, spreadable culture that is contagious throughout your school building that people actually want to engage with. Culture at Eagle Ridge is 100% different and unique. Excellence is not an option, it's a requirement. Culture permeates through everything, and they've built a leadership pipeline where they are developing leaders within their building to take on administrative roles. One of the things that I thought was truly beautiful is that as a part of their expansion plan to grow their school, they bridged in a leadership pipeline because they recognize as we grow, as we expand, as we build, we're going to need leaders to continue to fill these spots. So they're developing a leadership pipeline. They recognize that everyone works harder and better and more succinct than everyone else in their district. And they have a service-based student culture where students give up time in the class to be able to serve around the school and in their specific community. It's the difference that allows you to separate yourself from other schools. And when we think about resources and how we're attracting resources to our school, number one, you have to understand what you're developing, and you have to have proof of this on a day-to-day basis. Number two, you have to have processes and people and various things happening within your school that is mission aligned. And then you have to be able to ask or answer the question of what is our unique selling proposition in our school and what makes us different. Don't be a cookie cutter process, but because the cookie cutter process have shown to have high teacher attrition, have low academic achievement. And just because you have beautiful buildings, just because you have great enrollment, doesn't mean you're actually creating students that are equipped, educated, and able to empower and compete as a part of the global economy. Step number 4 is, what is your impact by the number? How will you differentiate yourself? Yes, is the USP, but how can we have numbers to measure and qualify and quantify what we're able to do as a school? When I think about Eagle Ridge, I think about Miss Hunter. Her daughter Kate goes to the school, and they struggled, and they had an anger problem for years, and they worked hard to be B and C students throughout their whole trajectory. They both played basketball, her children. They graduated, got academic and sports scholarship. Hunter graduated and came back to graduation and recognized one thing. He's now playing Division I basketball, straight A student. He's on a full ride scholarship. His mom broke down and started crying because she said, without this school, I don't know what my children would have became. And she said the culture embraced them 100 times over. As soon as one adult would get tired of them in the classroom, as soon as one adult would want to write them off, there was another adult, there was another person that would advocate for them. There was another adult that would advocate for them. Who is the adults in your building that are advocating? Have you created a culture of advocacy for students, for parents, for your community and your school? How many alumni would come back to your school and have these stories? How many alumni would not just have these stories, be confident, comfortable, and courageous to share these stories publicly? Impact by the numbers with this school is that their ATC scores are top 3 in the state of Minnesota. They have an average score of 25.2, and the state average is 21.2. They are one of the highest ACT scores in the nation. When we think about everything that I've communicated today, it's not just about statistics, it's not just about numbers, it's not just about testimonials. All of these first 4 steps of understanding what we're developing, understanding how we're mission aligned, understanding what's our unique selling proposition, understanding what are the actual numbers that quantify the impact that we're making based upon impact by the numbers. This allows us in step 5 to create partnership opportunities. If we are mission aligned and we understand what we're developing and we've created a niche and being able to be different and we can quantify that, this allows companies to want to engage with us. But this also allows us to understand what type of partnerships we want to be able to make. If we recognize that the mental health of our students is important and we're trying to develop whole students and children and leaders, then what type of companies out there are doing the same things that would mirror our values and our specific commitments? If we understand that we're building the future leaders of America, then what other companies are doing that and leading and creating a pipeline of leaders? What type of nonprofits are having leadership development programs out there that we can engage or serve? Coming from a school that was a leadership school, if I don't see leadership, if I don't see leadership partnerships, if I don't have testimonials of students leading specific work at our school, in our community, in our town, then how can I say that this is a leadership school? Oftentimes, when we look at just the simple name of the school, whether it's a classical school, a STEM school, a leadership school, an entrepreneurship school, are these things happening on the day-to-day? And do we have partnerships that can commit and consistently bridge the gap between what we're doing in the classroom from an academic standpoint and what's actually happening within the industry? How can we develop partnerships, and what partnerships do we have that align us with our actual mission, vision, and values of the school? Number 1 is, what are we developing? Number 2 is, how are you ensuring your mission aligned? Number 3 is, what is your unique selling proposition? Number 4 is, what is the impact by the number? Number 5 is partnership opportunities that align. What are these partnership opportunities? Once we understand that, now in regards to our pitch, we have to have collateral. I understand having collateral to get students to know about your school. I recognize that many schools have the one-pagers, have the flyers to communicate to families, this is who we are, this is where we are, open enrollment, and the focus for schools many times is just to get butts in seats. Now, the problem with that, and what I've recognized and researched with many of the top schools around the country, is that there's not just a wait list because they were always a top performing school. There's a wait list because schools put that in place, and how they put that in place is that they stopped enrollment at a specific time so that they can focus on the academic achievement of students. If there's a parent watching this right now, I want you to consider, if a school is saying open enrollment all year, I want you to also look at their school report card. And I'm sure there's a correlation between schools that are just open for students all year and what's actually happening within the classroom, within the school. When we reduce the time, it allows us to focus intentionally and go deep with the education that's actually happening in the school. So now it allows us to focus on the actual priority, which is educating, equipping, and empowering students, rather than just getting numbers, so that we can fluff numbers so that we can increase income and revenue of the school. Traditionally, when we look at charter management organizations or educational management organizations, their commitment is to provide all of the back-end support and resources. But usually with many of these organizations, the schools that they're supporting are not producing the numbers that are marketable. But yes, they have buildings, but are they really building and developing students? So the 6th most critical piece is you want to have a collateral that can successfully communicate the experiences that are happening within this building, not just from an academic standpoint. You want to go into detail. You want to have impact statements and impact reporting. You want to have the specific research that is being done about the type of students that it's going to be developed. You want to be able to have people scroll down and see the great things and partnerships and programming that you have. And why we talk about this at the 6th step is because you have to understand what you're developing and who you're developing. You have to understand how you're mission aligned. You have to understand what differentiates you from another school or another society or another district. You have to understand what is the actual impact by the numbers based upon what we're creating that's connected to our mission and what we're developing. And then you have to write down the partnerships that you have. With all of that, from a parent perspective, from a marketing perspective, and from a partner and donor perspective, these things are critical in order to have on collateral. It's not just about answering the who, what, when, where, and why. It's about also how are we creating marketing material and collateral that separates ourselves from other schools and other leaders that are out there. And the last step of this process is, what do you know about the families that you serve? Oftentimes, we will have marketing material that is not speaking to the types of students, the types of families that we're actually marketing to. If we believe that our model is built for Black and brown students to be able to get them to this specific level so that we can produce this, then we have to show that in our marketing, and we have to communicate that in our collateral or on our websites. Now, I understand that you can't say that certain students can't come to your school, but your model is built with a specific student in mind. So as you think about that specific student in mind, as you think about what we're trying to develop, as you think about how we are focusing on being mission aligned, we would recommend understanding what your unique selling proposition is. Then understanding, all right, how can we quantify and show this from impact by our numbers? What are the partnerships that you have readily available? And does this all show up in the collateral? But none of this would be possible without step 7 as well, is ensuring that you keep the students and the families that you serve in mind. If you need help with any of these processes, let us do a culture assessment for you. Click the link below, schedule a call, or join our webinar where we're talking about the critical steps of the fundraising and advancement process that we've created, that's led to a school creating $1.2 million in funds in 1 year. Thanks for joining me on the Contagious Culture podcast. Before we end, ask yourself this one question: what kind of culture am I spreading? Remember that culture is everywhere, in everything. So make yours worth catching. We'll see you all next time.